What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Nick 4K video. Today we're checking out a video from Slave to the System, and the video is titled "The 8K TV Scammed Millions. Here's Why." I think that there is a world where 8K is the next step from 4K. I think we're slowly getting there, especially with the adoption of 4K becoming more prevalent as time goes on. So I do think there is an evolution to the 4K TV, which will be 8K. They tried with the 3D TVs a couple years back. That failed. They tried to do 8K too soon. That failed. But I do think that we will see an uptick in 8K as time goes on, and especially when we see more examples, like maybe if Avatar 3 comes out as an 8K or something like that, I could see that being a big turning point. But we'll see. Let's check out the video, see what he has to say, and see if we agree or disagree. Check it out.
Listen closely, because I guarantee you're not going to guess the year the first 8K TV was introduced. Go ahead, take a wild guess. You ready?
2012.
No, you're not. It was 2012. Yeah,
I got it.
Over a decade ago,
Yes, sir.
Sharp unveiled the first
Yes,
ever
sir.
8K panel. But here's the catch. The world wasn't ready for it, not even close. See, this wasn't really about selling a groundbreaking product. It was about grabbing headlines. It was classic tech theater. The kind of move where the product itself is just a decoy, a shiny prop meant to scream innovation, while the real goal is attention. Same playbook Ryanair used when they floated the idea of making passengers stand during flights.
A lot of
when Amazon teased drone deliveries
companies
that never
do that.
really took off. It doesn't matter if it happens, because every blog, news site, and Tech Bro podcast will talk about it. Boom, free marketing. Sharp got what it wanted.
Yep.
Buzz. And suddenly, their name was floating around next to cutting-edge technology. Never mind that no one had the internet speed, content, or eyesight to enjoy 8K.
And don't forget, Sharp was like the worst TV brand. Like they had decent products, but like their marketing was awful. So them doing this was actually really smart from them. They probably got so much publicity for this, and it was super simple. And yeah, I don't even think Sharp even makes TVs anymore. Back in the day, if you ever wondered if any of your friends' parents weren't making a lot of money, they had a Sharp TV. That's usually how it was. And you know how I knew that? Because I had a Sharp TV, bitch. All right, let's continue.
That didn't matter. What mattered was that Sharp now meant the future. And the future, my friend, is exactly what every tech company wants to sell you, even if it doesn't exist yet. Fast forward to 2018. The media's in love again. The first 8K TVs are finally here, they say. And El Mundo, one of the big Spanish outlets, breaks it down. 8K means twice the resolution of 4K. No,
Nope.
That's wrong. It's actually 4 times the resolution. But hey, who's checking, right? Let me drop a quick spoiler for you. The reason 8K failed? It wasn't because people didn't want better TVs. It's because we reached the point where better stopped making a difference. You know how on a 4K screen, you get 4 times the pixels of full HD? Well, on 8K, you get 16. That's 33 million pixels.
Yeah, what it comes down to is, 4K, even in 2018, I think I didn't get my first 4K TV until 2016, so like the first 4K stuff was still new. It was still way too new. In fact, you could say it's still too new for us to even jump into 8K. Although I think we're getting to the point where like most people who had like 720 have moved to 1080p, and the majority of 1080p is now sliding over to 4K. But there's still way too many people with 1080p before we jump into, considering 8K. And I just think it's one of those things where there's no reason to have 8K yet. I get it. And maybe like I'd even say 5 years, I would see the mass adoption continuing. But even now, it's just way too soon. So back in 2018, let alone 2012, right? That's way too soon to be trying to push an 8K product. 100%. Way too soon.
Sounds impressive, but here's the twist. Our human eyeballs, those little jelly orbs in our heads, can't even tell the difference unless the screen is massive and your face is basically inches from it. It's like buying a Ferrari just to drive in a school zone. And the tech companies knew it. Deep down they knew, but they were chasing something else. Let's pause for a second and ask the obvious. Why push something nobody needs? Because in tech, the game isn't just about solving problems, it's about creating new ones. Problems you didn't know you had. That's how we got phones that fold, fridges with Wi-Fi, and yes, televisions so sharp they could probably spot a mosquito yawning in the background of a scene. The goal? Keep us chasing upgrades. Keep us wanting. And the 8K pitch? Oh, it was juicy. Imagine colors that pop like fireworks. Textures so crisp you could feel them. Movie nights so immersive you'd think you were inside the film. They made it sound like 4K was a blurry mess and 8K was the final form of vision itself. A technological nirvana. LG told us in 2019 that 8K would redefine storytelling, that you'd see emotions better, that your TV would disappear and you'd be left floating in pure cinematic bliss. But guess what happened when people went looking for those magical machines in 2025? Crickets. If you hop over to LG's website right now and type in 8K, you won't find a glowing tribute to the future. You'll find a digital graveyard. Most of the 8K models they once bragged about, discontinued,
Too
out of
soon.
production, ghosted. And the one model that is still up, it's basically the same TV they released 5 years ago, just with a slightly shinier frame and a new model number slapped on the box. Meanwhile, back in the real world, people still aren't buying. And it's not just because of the price. Although, yes, let's talk
They were
about
too
the price.
expensive. Yeah.
Because unless you've recently inherited an oil field or won the lottery, chances are you're not casually tossing $4,000 at a screen that looks almost the same as your current one. And this is where it gets good. Even the cheap 8K TVs aren't actually cheap. They're just marked down from absurd to still totally unnecessary. And here's the paradox. For prices to go down, more people have to buy. But if the price stays too high, nobody does. It's a loop, like trying to get your first job, but every job requires experience. Welcome to the catch-22 of tech marketing. But the real kicker? Power consumption. Every 8K TV on the market has a giant red flag glued to it, an energy efficiency rating of G. That's as bad as it gets. One of these screens can chug electricity like it's prepping for a blackout party.
Whoa.
To put it in perspective, run your 8K TV for 4 hours and it'll use more electricity than your fridge does in an entire day.
Crazy.
And your fridge, by the way, is busy actually keeping food from rotting. Your TV is just showing you reruns of The Office in unnecessarily sharp detail.
No! God, please, no! No!
Things got so bad that in late 2022, the EU basically said, we might just ban these things altogether. New energy rules were about to drop in March 2023 that would have made it nearly impossible for 8K TVs to legally be sold in Europe. The tech giants panicked. You think Samsung, LG, and Sony were going to roll over and take that? Nope. Out came the lawyers, the lobbyists, the political pressure. Suddenly, behind closed doors, it wasn't about pixels, it was about profits. And right before the deadline, the EU caved. Okay.
I mean, even just looking at the wattage on that, the idea of 8K tech back then, it was just not there. Like, not only was it like people weren't interested because it was too expensive, but like the technology to be able to make it run efficiently, it wasn't there yet. So it's just like this bad technology that seems pretty good, but just not able to be efficient. And if something's not efficient, it's not worth it. So yeah, it's just no surprise that did not, that didn't take off. And unfortunately, what I think it did was it's going to hurt it in the future. Like I keep saying in this video, 8K is going to have to be the next step from 4K TVs. Like, there has to be a next step. That's how technology innovates, evolves. The next step of 4K is going to be 8K. But then the question with that is, because of their false push before, our company is going to be too afraid to even try it, / our consumers going to be too afraid to adopt it. It could be one of those things where all these companies were trying to push for that 8K push, to sell their TVs and make more money, that they unfortunately might have just hindered that whole format for a lot longer than it was supposed to be hindered. That's a pretty deep question.
Fine, they said. You can sell your 8K TVs, but only if eco mode is turned on by default. Eco mode. Let that sink in. Imagine buying a Ferrari.
I
and being
hate
told
eco
it only
mode.
drives in economy mode, unless you dig into the menus, change a bunch of settings, and accept a warning message.
I get it.
Okay
I
in
just don't like it.
2023. And even then, sales didn't move.
When I first get a TV, the two things I turn off right away is motion smoothing and eco mode. Those are the two things that get knocked off, and other things too, but those are the two things right away. As soon as that thing gets plugged in, boom, they're gone.
Because deep down, the average buyer felt it. Something about all this didn't add up. So they tried again. One last swing. The Olympics. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics became the perfect excuse to pump 8K back into the spotlight. This is it, they said. The moment 8K finally shines. The marketing engines roared back to life. Sony unveiled enormous spaceship-like models that looked like props from Interstellar. LG wrapped their TVs in glowing buzzwords like quantum, realism, and ultrafusion, whatever that means. Samsung threw in a dozen models, each claiming to be smarter, sharper, and more revolutionary than the last. Even Rakuten jumped in, announcing a brand new 8K streaming platform. And what happened? It never launched. The whole thing fizzled out
never
like
heard
a
of
birthday
Rakuten.
candle in the rain. Because here's the truth. The tech was ready, but the content wasn't. Not even close. And this, right here, is where the whole 8K dream really unravels. Because what's the point of owning a supercar if there's no road to drive it on? Alright, here's where everything starts to fall apart. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you ignored the price, that you didn't care about the ridiculous energy bills, or the fact that your TV sounds like it's running a small power plant. You went ahead and bought yourself that shiny new 8K screen. Now what? You sit down on the couch, remote in hand, excited to finally see what 33 million pixels look like. You open YouTube, you search 8K video, and what do you get? Birds. Specifically, toucans. Tropical birds in slow motion, blinking dramatically. Maybe a time-lapse of Tokyo.
You know, when I first got my OLED, I did the same thing. I opened up YouTube and I looked up this lizard video. It looked really cool, but it's one of those things where it was just like, so beautiful. And I showed my friends, my family, and they loved it. They thought it was awesome. Of course, the difference is, you know, I think I got my 4K for like 2005 years ago, where an 8K is a lot more. So to buy that and then justify it is going to be a lot harder than justifying a $2,000 4K OLED, where you can just have way more versatility without having to, you know, spend 5 times as much.
Or a hyper-saturated clip of waves crashing on a beach. All of it looks nice, but let's be honest, it's demo bait. These aren't real movies or shows. They're basically nature wallpaper with a title. And that's the big problem. There is almost no actual content in 8K. Streaming services? Nope. Netflix doesn't offer 8K. Neither does Disney+, HBO Max, or Hulu. You'd think the tech would arrive after the content ecosystem was ready, right? But no. This was a full-on backwards rollout. Like buying a cassette player in 2025 and then realizing no one makes tapes anymore. Even the tech review channels on YouTube, the ones hyping these TVs, can't find much to show on them. Most videos are shot in 4K, maybe 6K, and then upscaled. What you're seeing isn't native 8K, it's digitally stretched. Like inflating a balloon until it's see-through. And don't even get me started on physical media. Blu-ray discs, still stuck in 4K. Ultra HD? That's a generous label. There is no 8K Blu-ray format, no 8K DVDs, nothing, zero, nada. So what's left? Well, you could record your own content, if you happen to own a cinema-grade 8K camera. But let me burst that bubble too. Filming in 8K isn't just expensive, it's insane. You need cameras that cost tens of thousands of dollars, storage drives that eat data like a starving animal, editing rigs that sound like jet engines when you hit render. And good luck uploading that to the internet. Your Wi-Fi will cry. Streaming 8K isn't just heavy, it's brutal. Even if the servers could handle it, your internet connection probably can't. Most homes can barely keep up with 4K on a bad day.
True.
Now imagine trying to stream 8K with HDR on a Sunday night, when 3 other people in your house are already watching Netflix. That's not immersion, that's buffering. And here's the kicker. Even if you find something in 8K, even if it loads, you probably won't notice the difference. According to Warner Brothers, yep, the Warner Brothers, the vast majority of viewers can't tell the difference between 4K and 8K in normal living room conditions. Your brain just doesn't care. Because unless you're watching on a screen the size of your garage door from 2 feet away, your eyes simply can't resolve that level of detail. It's like printing Shakespeare on a grain of rice. Technically impressive? Sure. Useful? Not really.
Now, I will say this. I work with 8K files on a regular basis, and I'll tell you, I don't actually even render them out in 8K. I take an 8K file and I'll squeeze it down into a 4K timeline, and then I'll render it out. And an actual 8K file squeezed down to 4K looks better than native 4K. So maybe there's something there, you know, with the addition of Dolby Vision 2 that was announced. the AI enhancement. Maybe there's something along those lines you could do. Take an 8K file and then squeeze it down into a 4K file and effectively make it look even crispier. But it is one of those things where I work with those 8K files daily. Someone who doesn't work with 8K files would probably not even notice a difference. So while I can see the difference, and I know there definitely is a difference between 8K and 4K, I can see it. Most people probably can't. And for the people who can't see it, why would you upgrade? And why would you pay 5 times the amount to upgrade? It just doesn't make sense. Right now,
and here's the cruel
in the
irony.
future it might make
The
sense,
few who
but for
can
now
spot
it
the
doesn't.
difference, tech reviewers, visual effects nerds, cinema buffs, they're the ones shouting the loudest that 8K isn't worth it. They're the ones saying, don't waste your money. This is just another shiny thing. But the industry doesn't stop.
8K isn't worth it yet. I said 5 years earlier, maybe more like 10 years, where 8K will become worth it. Because at one time, 4K wasn't worth it either. So it will take time. We need better tech infrastructure when it comes to data processing, and we see that with like fiber optic cables and how that's really been taking over. So we're seeing that kind of that faster, stronger data connection being done, but we're still way too far behind before 8K becomes adopted like it is now, like a 4K would be, I guess you could say.
Never does. Because when 8K flopped, guess what happened? They started teasing 16K. Yeah, that's a real thing. A cat video in 16K, a toucan in 16K. Because when the lie doesn't sell, you double down and make it louder. But there's one last piece to this mess. One that ties everything together.
I don't know about
16K, but the why behind it all. And it has to do with how companies trick you into wanting things you didn't need yesterday and won't care about tomorrow. Let's get into that. So here we are. We've talked about the overpriced screens, the missing content, the marketing smoke and mirrors, but there's one last piece to this whole 8K puzzle. And it's the most important one. We never needed it. You see, back when full HD hit the market, it actually mattered. You were going from blurry to clear, from standard to cinematic. Watching sports felt faster.
And this is the same thing with video games, by the way. The jump from the PS2 to the 360 was crazy. And then the jump from the 360 to the Xbox One was pretty good, but not nearly as crazy as that jump was. And so now you have the level of the Series X from the Xbox One, and it's just not that big of a jump. So a lot of people didn't adopt it. So, I mean, that's understandable. Why pay the extra money when you can just get something that's just effectively the same thing, just not as good? When, if it's that much more money, it doesn't make any sense. But like I said, the PS2 to the 360, that was a massive jump. And that's kind of an example of what he's saying in this video right here.
Movies looked richer. It was a real leap. And when 4K came around, yeah, that was an upgrade too. Not life-changing, but nice. Everything looked more detailed. It felt next gen. People could tell. But 8K, that wasn't for you. It wasn't about clarity. It wasn't about realism. It was about keeping the machine running.
Here, I'm going to go into, that was a good shot to kind of explain this. This is a little tangent, but I just want to explain for those of you who may not really get the idea of what 8K, why would you do 8K when you can have 4K? So as you can see, here's 4K and here's 8K. Obviously there is a clarity difference. From this distance, actually 1080p and the 4K actually aren't that much different. Obviously 4K is better, but the 8K is really good for punching in. This is a shot probably from someone who was standing like 50 feet away from this horse with a zoom lens, and they took the shot. Or this is probably just a this image, and then they slowly blurred it to make it But let's just say for argument's sakes, what an 8K file is really good for is being able to punch in as far as you want to effectively match the same quality as a 4K. So let's say you have a 16K, you could zoom in to make your anywhere on the whole screen 4K or 8K file. But effectively, if you take that whole file, you squeeze it down into a 4K file, this would be native, and then this would be like what 8K would look like, but squeezed down. So obviously way better, but still like not that much better to the point that you have to like go out and buy an 8K camera, right? That's kind of a way of describing that. I hope I explained that without confusing anyone, but there you go.
It wasn't about realism. It was about keeping the machine running. Because here's how the consumer tech economy works. It doesn't thrive on satisfaction. It survives on insecurity. You're not supposed to feel content with your current TV. You're supposed to think, mine is outdated. You're supposed to walk through the electronics store, glance at a model that curves or flips or boasts a higher number, and feel that tiny itch. Maybe I need that. And if you don't feel it, they'll manufacture the itch for you. Think about it. Every year there's a new something. Curved screens.
And I just want to point this out too. Everything is designed that way. Humans, there's no such thing as satisfied. Humans are never satisfied. You can train your brain to be more satisfied than other things, but ultimately your brain is always going to be hunting for the next good thing. And that's just how human brains are. You can, like I said, train yourself to be better, but deep down, we are always going to be hunting for the best thing, and marketing will take advantage of that. Not just electronics, but in all fields. That's just the way it is.
3D TVs, smart everything. Remember 3D TVs? The glasses you lost in the couch cushions? Total flop.
Yeah,
and yet,
no.
They got their moment. Because every few years, they need a new revolution to sell. A new buzzword, a new number, a new dream. But here's the sickest part. 8K wasn't even about 8K. It was a distraction. While you were squinting at pixels and arguing about whether black levels were pure enough, companies were playing a deeper game. They were using 8K as a decoy to keep you hooked in the cycle. Not so you could see better, but so they could sell better. Remember that time Samsung earned billions in profits, but still had to apologize to investors because it wasn't quite enough? That's the game. Growth isn't optional anymore. It's demanded. If a company makes $6.8 billion, but Wall Street expected $7.7 billion, it's considered a failure. So what do? They manufacture demand. They tell you your current TV isn't good enough, that your perfectly fine 4K screen is old, that your HDMI cable is slow, that your experience isn't immersive.
And this got worse during COVID. We saw this massive rise of everyone being inside and putting their money towards, entertainment, like video games especially, tech, all this stuff. So we had this massive increase of the economy looking at this and saying, wow, everyone really loves this. This increase is going to continue. And so a lot of these big, even game studios, movie studios, they invested a ton of money into these different studios, thinking that, COVID, it was going up already. But then when COVID came, it went like this. So they're thinking, oh, it's going to keep on doing this after COVID. Obviously, it wasn't going to do that. But they're thinking, oh, we're going to invest a bunch of money. Let's keep on going. And then eventually that curve started equaling back out. It's going to go back on its same range. So it's going to keep on going back up eventually. But it's one of those things where like COVID made it go like this. And now we're on this like dip. And actually, I'd say maybe even a year ago, we were on that dip. We're kind of slowly getting back to like the normal curve. But COVID was a variable that a lot of studios didn't take into account when they started putting a lot of money in these different aspects. So what it comes down to is a bunch of people got hired to do things thinking that, hey, we're making so much money, you can hire more people, put money into here, a bunch more money into here. And unfortunately, it all comes crashing down. And guess what happens? We have mass layoffs like we've been seeing from like every tech company. So that's just one of those fundamental things that comes to making money for a lot of companies is they will put the point of, oh, let's put more money into this situation, even though we know deep down it cannot last and we're going to be ruining a lot of people's lives if we do this. A lot of companies did that. And honestly, I know a lot of people let them off the hook. I think a lot of companies should be held accountable for doing that. They knew what they were doing and a lot of people got screwed over. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go too far into that tangent. That's a different video, but we'll continue with this one.
Unless you upgrade. It's not about satisfying needs, it's about creating new ones. And that's why 8K existed. Not because we needed it, not because we asked for it, but because someone needed to hit a quarterly target. The worst part? It worked. For a little while at least. They sold the illusion. They made tech YouTubers do blind tests. They sponsored headlines. They slapped future-ready labels on boxes. They convinced just enough people to keep the fire burning. And yet today, 8K makes up less than 1% of global TV sales. Most manufacturers have backed away. Even Sony quietly removed the 8K logo from the PlayStation 5 box without telling anyone. Why? Because there are only 3 PS5 games that even support it, and those run at lower frame rates that make the gameplay worse, not better. It's like trying to play basketball in dress shoes. Technically possible, but stupid.
100%. They said, hey, we have 8K games. You know, they play at 10 FPS, but we do have 8K games. Just saying. It's crazy.
Gaming, ironically, is the only frontier where 8K might make sense one day. Maybe. But even that's a stretch. We're still struggling to hit smooth 60 FPS at 1440p, let alone native 8K. Developers are prioritizing lighting, physics, AI, not pixels. Because gameplay, like movies, is about experience, not resolution. So where does that leave us? Right back where we started. With tech that promised the moon but couldn't deliver the map. And honestly, maybe that's a good thing. Because the collapse of 8K taught us something important. We're not as gullible as they think. We questioned. We hesitated. We didn't all rush to upgrade. And for once, the hype machine didn't win.
So, let's wrap this up. We've seen how 8K TVs were never about giving you better picture quality. They were about selling you something you didn't ask for. The prices were insane. The energy use was worse than a fridge. And the content? Almost non-existent. It wasn't a leap forward in technology. It was a distraction. A marketing trick dressed up as innovation. But now you know. And that's powerful, because the next time some brand flashes next gen or game changer on the box, you'll know to stop and ask, do I really need this? Or am I just being sold another dream? If this video helped you see things a little clearer, ironically, more than any 8K screen ever could, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this with someone who's been eyeing that overpriced Ultra TV.
Yeah, this was a really good video. Very solid information. I would definitely recommend checking them out. I'll leave a link to their channel in the description below. It's one of those things where like I said earlier, I really do think that early push of the 8K technology at the late 2010s, early 2020s, that's going to hurt innovation in the future. If you watched my videos before, you already know that I am someone who thinks that 8K can eventually become a thing, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to need some big backers. So like I said, Avatar 3, maybe that could be 8K, you know, something like that. Just really push it, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, oh well, but we'll give it a shot. I think there's a level to it. We should give 8K a shot at least. Before we weren't ready, maybe in 5 to 10 years, we'll give it a real shot and we'll see if it goes anywhere. If it doesn't, then 4K really will just stay. But the thing about technology is that it doesn't stop. It continues to innovate or it goes obsolete. And when it comes to TVs, I just can't foresee that going obsolete. Maybe it will though. Who knows? Maybe we all will eventually just have phones. We won't have TVs anymore. We'll all just play games and watch movies on our phones, and that's it. Who knows? It's going to be an interesting future. But what do you think? Are you going to eventually adopt 8K if it does become popular? Or are you pretty much good with 4K? That's where you're going to stop, and that's that. Or, better question, are you one of those sad saps who actually went into the 8K format too early? And are you mad about it, or are there actually some benefits to it? I want to hear that in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more videos. You want to check out any more of my videos, they're right here on the screen. Go ahead and click those links. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.